He came back, and your heart skipped a beat. After all this time, all the silence, all the late nights, wondering if he ever thought about you, there he is, saying the things you long to hear. But wait, before you open the door too wide, you need to ask yourself something most people forget in that moment. What will it cost me to let him back in? Because here's what no one tells you. When a man returns, it's not always because he's ready. Sometimes he comes back out of loneliness, comfort, or curiosity. And if you're not careful, one wrong move, like dropping everything for him, rushing to prove you're still available, over-explaining, romanticizing the past, ignoring your standards, or worst of all, losing the power you found in his absence, can push him away again, fast. The version of you he walked away from isn't the same woman you are now, and that woman, strong, self-assured, whole, deserves more than just a returning text or apology. She deserves consistency. She deserves effort. This time, it's not about whether he comes back. It's about whether you keep everything you gained while he was gone. Because real power is not letting someone's return erase your growth. He came back. That text you never thought would arrive lit up your screen. Maybe it said something simple like, "Hey," or maybe it was more heartfelt, "I miss you." And in that moment, everything in your body wanted to lean in, to answer immediately, to let him know that you've been waiting, that you've been hoping for this moment. But here's the truth, most people never tell you. The first move you make after he comes back matters more than the fact that he came back at all. Because when a man returns, especially after time apart or distance created by conflict, he's watching your response. Not consciously, necessarily, but on a gut level, he's paying attention. What happens next tells him everything about the dynamic between you now. And for so many people, the moment they hear from him again, they make the fatal mistake of dropping everything. Emotionally, mentally, even physically, they rearrange their priorities to accommodate his sudden reappearance. It's almost like the past disappears in an instant. The hurt, the confusion, the nights you cried and tried to understand what went wrong, all of it is shoved to the side because now he's back. And if you're not careful, that urgency to seize the moment can cause you to abandon your boundaries entirely. But here's the problem. When someone senses that you've been waiting for them, when it's clear they can return and immediately regain the front row seat in your life without effort, the value of that seat goes down. It's human nature. We don't treasure what feels guaranteed. We treasure what feels earned. And if his presence didn't require any effort, if your life looks exactly the same the second he shows up again, he won't feel inspired to do better. He'll just feel reassured that he can disappear, return, and be welcomed back without friction. That's not love. That's access. And access without boundaries rarely inspires commitment. What you want instead is to meet his return from a place of grounded strength. That doesn't mean you have to be cold. You can be kind. You can even be warm. But you don't need to be immediate. You don't need to cancel plans, reschedule commitments, or send long paragraphs of emotional unloading the second he texts. You don't need to go into overdrive to make sure he doesn't slip away again. He came back. That's a start. But what matters now is what he does, and just as importantly, what you do. This is the time to show him what's changed, not necessarily what's changed about him, because frankly, you don't know that yet, but what's changed about you, the life you've built, the strength you've cultivated, the way you handle your emotions now, the confidence that says, I care about you, but I also care about myself. When you respond from that place, everything shifts. He starts to sense something different in you, something powerful. He doesn't just see the woman he left, he sees the woman who kept moving forward, The one who's willing to talk, yes, but who doesn't chase, who doesn't rush, who doesn't leap before looking. That energy changes the entire conversation. It draws him in deeper because now he knows he doesn't just get you back, he has to earn you back. But if you drop everything too quickly, if you send the message, even unintentionally, that his return alone is enough to restore full access, then you're not just starting over, you're starting beneath where you left off. Because now he knows you'll accept breadcrumbs, that the bar has been lowered, and instead of rising to meet you, he relaxes into minimal effort. That's not the relationship you want. You don't want to be in a position where you're constantly fearing he'll vanish again, where you feel like you have to overcompensate to keep his attention. You want to be with someone who chooses you deliberately, consistently, and with presence. But to attract that, you have to embody it first. You have to choose yourself in those first critical moments. Not in a performative way, but in a real, steady, grounded way that communicates, I've got a beautiful life here. You're welcome to step into it, but I'm not putting it on pause for anyone. That doesn't mean you don't feel. It doesn't mean you don't care. It just means that care is expressed with discernment, not desperation. It means you give space for the situation to unfold, for trust to be rebuilt. You allow the relationship to grow in real time, not based on nostalgia, not based on fantasy, and certainly not based on fear that if you don't act fast, he'll vanish again. And if he does vanish again, then that tells you everything you need to know, because the man who is right for you won't be scared off by your standards. He'll be drawn in by them. The right person won't mind that you took your time. He'll respect it. He'll admire it. Because in that patience, he'll see your power. And in that power, he'll know this is someone worth showing up for. When someone comes back into your life after disappearing, breaking things off, or creating distance, there's a very specific emotional reaction that happens inside of us. We light up. It's that hit of validation, of excitement, of finally getting what we've been hoping for, maybe even praying for. And in that moment, it's incredibly easy to forget everything, the pain they caused, the time that passed, the silence you sat in. It all gets buried under this one overwhelming thought. He came back. And so what do we want to do when he returns? We want to rush forward and close the gap. We want to bridge the silence. We want to reassure him, yes, I'm still here. I still care. You still have me. But here's the truth. That's hard to hear. The very thing that feels instinctive in that moment, the urge to immediately show you're still emotionally available to him, can be the thing that kills the attraction all over again. You think you're showing warmth, openness, vulnerability, and maybe you are, but to him, it reads like a lack of self-respect. Like he could walk away, vanish, and waltz back in whenever he decides, and you'll still be there, waiting. That's not romantic. That's not magnetic. That's not love. That's availability on tap. And nothing kills desire faster than something that's too easy, too predictable, too ready the moment he decides he wants it. We confuse emotional honesty with emotional exposure. You can be honest, you can even care, but that doesn't mean he needs to be handed the full access pass the moment he returns. He doesn't need to know you're still hurting, still dreaming of him. That's not his privilege yet. He lost that when he walked away. And until he earns that privilege back, you owe it to yourself not to show your whole hand. That space, that mystery, that I don't know if I can still have her energy. That's what pulls someone back in deeper. But if the moment he returns, you rush to emotionally comfort him, to soothe his uncertainty, to let him know it's safe and easy to come back, you rob him of the process he needs to go through to value you again. You shortcut his emotional journey. You rescue him from doubt. But it's that very doubt that would have brought him face to face with what he lost. The thing we don't talk about enough is that when someone leaves and then returns, they're not always coming back because they had some profound revelation. Sometimes it's comfort. Sometimes it's curiosity. Sometimes it's boredom. And if you're too quick to show you're still here emotionally or otherwise, he doesn't need to reflect. He doesn't need to grow. He doesn't need to ask himself why he lost you in the first place. Instead of leaning in, lean back, not with cruelty, not with a cold shoulder, but with self-possession, with dignity. Respond, don't react. Let him feel that his return has consequences, that it doesn't just grant him a VIP pass into your heart again, because the moment he feels he can slide back in without resistance, he'll subconsciously believe that your love is for rent, not earned. Here's what that looks like practically. You don't answer right away. You don't pour your heart out. You don't jump into conversations late at night like no time has passed. You create space. You observe. You stay grounded. Let him wonder if you still feel the same. Let him work to reestablish trust, rapport, consistency. Let him show you over time that he deserves a seat back at your table. Don't hand it to him the moment he shows up with a smile and a memory. There's something incredibly powerful in not needing to be the one to ease his fears. He should be the one wondering where you stand, not the other way round. Your silence, your restraint, your calmness, those things speak volumes. They say, I'm not mad, I'm not bitter, but I'm also not yours just because you came back. That's the energy that flips the dynamic. You've done the work to move forward, or at least to start healing. Don't undo that progress in a rush to show someone that you're still emotionally loyal to them. Because if they're serious about coming back, they'll be serious about showing you with action, not just words. They'll be okay with a little uncertainty. They'll understand why you're holding back, and they'll lean in anyway. That's how you know it's real. Not when someone says, I missed you, but when someone proves, through their patience and persistence, that they're willing to earn you again, not just pick up where they left off. So the next time he shows up, before you send that emotionally loaded message or jump on that call to reconnect, pause. Ask yourself, am I showing him that I'm still here, or am I showing him that I've grown? Because growth is what draws people in. Growth is what makes them afraid to lose you again. The fastest way to push him away again is to show him he never really left. When someone who hurt you, disappointed you, or walked away from you comes back, there's often a part of you that wants to dive straight into the heart of it. You want to ask all the questions you've been holding in. Why did he leave? Why now? Was it even real? You crave answers because you think they'll give you peace, closure, a sense of control in a situation that once felt so out of your hands. But here's the thing most people don't realize. When he comes back, the worst thing you can do right away is try to get him to explain everything. See, the moment he returns, you're standing at an emotional crossroads. One path leads to deeper connection, the other to emotional overwhelm. And the irony is, the one that feels most urgent, the one where you sit him down and say, we need to talk about what happened, is often the one that drives him back out the door. Not because the conversation doesn't matter, it does, but timing is everything. People, especially men, don't come back already emotionally prepped for a deep dive. Most come back uncertain, curious, testing the water to see if it's safe to approach. And if the moment they return, they feel like they're being put on emotional trial, it becomes too much too soon. They get overwhelmed, they feel like they're failing before they even get a second chance to begin. And that discomfort, it doesn't inspire them to lean in, it makes them pull away again. What you have to understand is, when someone reappears in your life after disappearing, it's not your job to instantly solve everything. You don't need to put your heart on the operating table the second he shows up. What you need to do is observe, create space, let the moment breathe. His actions in that space will tell you far more than any explanation he could offer. Sometimes we rush to revisit the past because we want reassurance. We think, if he tells me he's sorry, if he explains why, then maybe I can finally feel okay. But when you make your peace dependent on his story, you lose your power. What if his story isn't satisfying? What if his reasons feel vague or incomplete? What if he doesn't even know why he left? Then what? You're left in the same emotional spiral, only now you've handed him the power to validate your pain or not. That's why your peace can't come from answers. It has to come from clarity. And clarity isn't always found in conversations. It's found in patterns. It's in watching whether his presence now reflects the growth he may claim, whether he's willing to put in effort this time, whether he actually shows up in a way that feels consistent and safe. These things speak louder than his version of the past ever could. There's also something else that's really important to remember. When you rush into emotional territory right away, you skip the stage where connection could naturally rebuild. Attraction doesn't live in tension and blame and frustration. It lives in presence, in shared moments, in rediscovering each other. If you skip that and go straight into the therapy chair, you lose the magic. You take what could be a fresh start and turn it into a courtroom. It's not about pretending nothing happened. You're not sweeping your feelings under the rug, but you're choosing to pace yourself, to be intentional, to remember that you're not just trying to talk about what went wrong, you're trying to see if anything has actually changed. And that takes time. Emotional safety, trust, consistency. None of that happens in one conversation. It happens over weeks, over actions, over how someone treats you now. So when he comes back, don't make the mistake of turning the reunion into an interrogation. You don't need to emotionally unload everything at once to protect yourself. You protect yourself by watching, by staying centered, by seeing how he holds your presence this time. Does he reach out? Does he make plans? Does he follow through? Does he respond when you express needs or boundaries? Those are the real answers. If you feel like he's earning a real chance, then yes, in time, you can go there. You can sit down and have the deeper conversations about the past, and they'll mean more. They'll be coming from a place of reconnection, not desperation, from a place of clarity, not chaos. But until then, you don't need to rush, because someone who's truly back for the right reasons won't be scared off by your pace. They'll respect it. Take your time. You don't need to get it all off your chest in the first moment. You just need to stay present, grounded, and aware. If you do that, the truth of his return, whether it's real, temporary, or just habit, will reveal itself. You won't have to dig for it. You'll simply see it. So he came back. And part of you wants to believe this means everything is about to be different now. That maybe he's realized what he lost. That this time he'll finally show up the way you always wanted him to. I get that. That hope is powerful. It makes your heart skip a beat when his name flashes on your phone. It makes you remember all the best parts of what you had. And it starts to imagine a future where maybe, just maybe, this time it actually works. But here's where we have to slow down. Because him coming back isn't a declaration of transformation. It's not a signed agreement that he's done the inner work, grown emotionally, or is ready to give what you need. It's not even a promise of consistency. It's just motion. That's all it is. And if we mistake motion for maturity, we'll walk right back into the same pain we barely survived last time. See, when someone walks back into your life, they often come carrying words. Words like, I miss you. I've been thinking about us. I didn't realize how much you meant to me. And those words can be seductive, especially if they echo the things you've secretly been longing to hear. But words alone don't build a relationship. Words are easy. It's behavior over time that tells you if someone is truly different. So when he comes back, you have to stay grounded in reality. You have to resist the urge to leap ahead into the fantasy. You can't afford to assume that just because he returned, it means he's evolved. You don't need to be cynical. You just need to be conscious. Because what often happens is the moment he shows back up, we hand over all the trust we took months to rebuild in ourselves. We immediately start giving the benefit of the doubt. We soften our boundaries and we open the door to someone who hasn't earned their place back in our world. Not yet. The real shift needs to happen in you. This time, it's about watching, observing, letting things unfold. And instead of pouring all your energy into trying to figure out what he's thinking or what he wants, flip the script. What do you want? What are you looking for now that you've grown? What are your new standards after everything you've learned? Because if he's really changed, you won't have to do mental gymnastics to prove it to yourself. You won't have to explain away inconsistencies or excuse behavior that doesn't match his promises. You'll see it in his consistency. You'll feel it in the way he shows up. Not just when he wants something, but even when things get a little inconvenient. True change isn't proven in one dramatic return. It's proven in a series of small, often unglamorous actions repeated over time. And you deserve that. You deserve someone who doesn't just make a grand re-entrance, but someone who stays, who follows through, who actually learned from the mistakes that hurt you both. That's not something you'll see in a week or after a few romantic texts. That's something that reveals itself slowly through presence, patience, and emotional responsibility. So the worst thing you can do is assume. Assume that his feelings are deeper now. Assume that his return equals regret. Assume that he knows what to do differently. That assumption sets you up for disappointment because it creates an emotional shortcut where there should be curiosity. Don't project the change you hope he's made. Let him show you. Let time do its work. Let patterns speak louder than words. And if you notice the same excuses coming up, the same inconsistencies, the same emotional unavailability wrapped in sweet language, pause. Don't fall for the packaging. Ask yourself honestly, is this really different? Or is this just familiar, dressed up as new? It takes courage to not rush back into something just because it's what your heart wants. It takes strength to slow down and protect your peace, even when the thing you've been waiting for finally shows up. But this is where your power is, right here, in the space between his return and your response. You don't need to punish him. You don't need to shut down, but you also don't need to rush. You get to hold both hope and discernment at the same time. You get to ask the hard questions. You get to move forward only when you've seen enough to trust your choice. So don't assume this means he's changed. Let him prove it over time, with consistency, with effort, with actions that align with his words. Because that's the only kind of return that truly deserves a second chance. ChatGPT said, "You know what happens a lot when someone comes back into your life, especially someone you've been emotionally invested in? You forget what you once promised yourself. You forget the standards you built in the quiet moments, when the pain was still fresh and you were figuring out what you deserved. When he returns, you get caught up in the moment, the excitement, the hope, the maybe. This time, it's different kind of thinking. And in that moment, it becomes dangerously easy to abandon the very standards you created to protect yourself. But here's the truth. Your standards weren't punishment. They were clarity. They were the product of deep reflection and honest heartbreak. You said to yourself, next time, I need someone who communicates more consistently, someone who actually shows up, someone who doesn't make me feel like I'm begging for scraps of love. And yet, the moment he walks back in and flashes a little attention, your brain goes into this old pattern. Maybe this is the validation I was waiting for. Maybe the love story is finally real. And this is where it gets tricky, because we think hope is the same thing as connection. We think that wanting it to be better this time means it actually will be. But wanting something doesn't make it real. And the reality is, just because he came back doesn't mean he's changed. And even if he has changed in some ways, that doesn't mean the relationship is right. That's where your standards have to do the work. Standards are what tell you whether his actions are aligning with the kind of love you said you wanted. Without them, all you're doing is hoping. And hope without standards is just self-abandonment dressed in optimism. What happens when we let our standards slide is that we start rationalizing. We tell ourselves, well, he's making an effort by even reaching out. Or he said he missed me, maybe he just didn't know how to express it before. We start giving partial credit for minimal effort. But love doesn't thrive in almosts. It thrives in consistency, in respect, in alignment. If he's still giving you emotional breadcrumbs and you're feasting on them like they're a full meal, you're setting yourself up for the same hurt in new packaging. There's this illusion that second chances automatically come with transformation. They don't. A second chance only becomes valuable if both people show up differently, and that includes you. Because when you abandon your standards, even if he has improved, you send the message that your boundaries were negotiable, that he didn't actually need to grow that much to have access to you again. And in that moment, you unknowingly train him not to take your standards seriously. You've made them conditional. He can ignore them, leave, and you'll still welcome him back as long as he returns with just enough affection. But you're not that woman anymore, or at least you're not supposed to be. You're not the woman who trades her dignity for a chance at recycled love. You're not the woman who confuses potential with partnership. You're not the woman who shrinks her needs to make someone else comfortable. You became someone stronger during the time he was gone. You learned how to validate yourself, how to live without the constant emotional tug of war. You rebuilt. And the worst thing you can do now is bulldoze everything you built because you're afraid to walk away again. It's not about being cold. It's not about making him jump through hoops. It's about honoring the journey you've been on. Saying, if you're back, I need to see not just your desire for me, but your ability to love me in a way that matches what I've decided I need. That's the difference between falling back into a pattern and stepping into a new. One is passive, the other is intentional. You have every right to hope. But let your standards filter that hope. Let them be the lens through which you evaluate his return. Does his behavior now line up with the kind of relationship you want to create? Or is it simply more of the same, dressed up in a little more charm and a few better timed messages? You get to decide what love looks like for you. You get to set the rules of engagement. You are not desperate for attention. You're selective with your energy. And if someone wants a place in your life after walking away, they better meet the terms of re-entry that you've already decided on. You're not asking for perfection. You're asking for effort. You're asking for presence. You're asking for the kind of love that doesn't make you feel like you're constantly convincing someone to choose you. Because the moment you abandon your standards out of hope, you abandon yourself. And if you're willing to lose yourself just to keep someone else, you've already lost the most important person in the room. Don't confuse his return with proof. The proof is in what he does next. And whether or not you have the courage to hold the line when someone comes back into your life, especially someone you once deeply cared about, it can stir up a whole storm of feelings. It's like suddenly being pulled into a movie you thought had ended, and now you're trying to figure out the plot all over again. But in that moment, it's easy to forget the most important thing. The version of you that exists now is not the same as the one who watched him walk away. You've evolved, you've grown, and the power you've cultivated in his absence, that is sacred. Because here's the truth. When he left, it hurt. Maybe it shattered you for a while. Maybe you cried more than you ever have. Maybe you overanalyzed every message that never came, every silence that spoke louder than words. But after all that pain, after sitting in the silence, waking up on the hard mornings, finding ways to breathe again, you started to reclaim yourself. You rediscovered your value, you rebuilt your confidence piece by piece, and began living a life that no longer revolved around his presence or absence. Now he's back, and the temptation, it's overwhelming. A part of you wants to jump in, to pick up right where things left off, to believe that his return is the full circle moment your heart was waiting for. But this is where most people lose themselves. Because what happens far too often is this. The minute he comes back, you unknowingly start handing over the power you fought so hard to gain. It can happen subtly. You start changing your schedule to make time for him. You stop doing the things that brought you joy when he was gone. You slowly, quietly begin to abandon the standards you rebuilt while healing. And before you know it, you're right back in the emotional position you were in before. Waiting, hoping, giving more than you're receiving. But this time, it's more dangerous because it's happening under the illusion that things are different now. The version of you he walked away from wasn't weak. She was human. But the version of you he's come back to, she's strong. She's lived through the fire. She's carried herself through heartbreak and still chose growth. That woman deserves more than someone who just comes back. She deserves someone who stays, who shows up consistently, and who doesn't require her to shrink or soften in order to be loved. This isn't about punishing him. This isn't about holding a grudge or making him prove himself through games. This is about honoring the strength it took for you to get here. It's about protecting the self-worth you built, not handing it over just because someone reappeared. Because power doesn't come from rejecting people. It comes from knowing you don't need them in order to be whole. Think about the emotional muscle you developed in his absence. Think about the way you began to light up again without needing his validation. That kind of power is magnetic. And if he really is a different man now, if his return truly means something, he will be drawn to that strength. not to a version of you that immediately dissolves into old patterns. So ask yourself, can I stay rooted in the life I've built, even as I reconnect with someone from the past? Can I keep my boundaries intact, my routines sacred, my standards unshakable? Because the truth is, the most attractive, most powerful move you can make when he comes back is not to fold. It's to stay grounded, stay in your worth, stay in your rhythm. Let him come into your world this time. Let him see the woman you've become, not the woman who once needed him, but the woman who's okay with or without him. That's the woman who holds real power. Because if you lose yourself now, if you abandon the growth you've earned, you're not losing him, you're losing you. And that is far too high a price to pay for someone who may or may not be ready for who you are. So when he comes back, don't just ask, is he serious this time? Ask yourself a better question. Can I stay true to the person I became while he was gone? If the answer is yes, then no matter what happens, you win.